The night I walked in on them will haunt me for the rest of my life. I used to believe that life had a way of rewarding the good ones. You work hard, you stay loyal, you build something with love, and the universe gives back. That was before everything I loved was ripped from me in one brutal moment. My name is Mark Daniels, and what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about betrayal. It's the unraveling of a man, the destruction of a marriage, and the silent heartbreak of a father who lost everything. It was a Thursday night. I remember it vividly because the bar had closed early. The storm outside had scared off the late crowd. I decided to head home early to surprise my wife, Linda. We'd been married for 6 years. I still brought her flowers from time to time, still kissed her forehead every morning before I left for work. I thought she was the love of my life. I parked the car in the driveway and noticed something strange right away: Trevor's truck. Trevor, my best friend since high school. We'd played football together, drank cheap beer in college, and stood by each other through every storm life threw our way. He was the best man at my wedding. And now, he was parked outside my home at 9:47 p.m. I wish I could say I had no suspicion, but if I'm being honest, that sick feeling in my gut had been growing for weeks. The distance in Linda's eyes, the forced smiles, the excuses about late-night work meetings that didn't add up. But still, I wasn't ready. I stepped into my own house quietly, as the storm outside masked the sound of my footsteps. The hallway light was off, the living room dark. Only a soft glow peeked out from beneath the bedroom door. Something inside me cracked open. I knew. I just knew. I walked down the hall slowly, every step heavy with dread. My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob. I didn't want to believe what I was about to see. I begged, "Please, let me be wrong." But I wasn't. I opened the door and saw the two people I loved most tangled in the sheets of my own bed. For a second, time stopped. Trevor's face went pale. Linda gasped and tried to cover herself, stammering something I couldn't hear. The blood in my veins turned to fire. My heart didn't break. It shattered into a million unrecognizable pieces. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I just stared. Trevor sat up, panicked, his hands raised like I was going to swing at him. I didn't need to. The silence between us said more than fists ever could. "You," I finally choked, my voice raw. "You brought him into our bed." Linda said nothing. Her eyes welled up, but there was no guilt in them. Just fear. I turned to Trevor, my best friend, the man I trusted with my life. "You were my brother," I said, voice low. "And you betrayed me like this?" He tried to speak. I didn't let him. I walked out. Not because I was weak, but because if I stayed in that room 1 second longer, I don't know what I might have done. Outside, the rain hit me like needles. I stood in the driveway, soaked, breathless, staring up at the sky like maybe God could explain why the people I loved had ripped my soul apart. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I sat in my truck until the sun came up. My hands clenched the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles bled. I wasn't just betrayed by a wife. I was betrayed by my best friend. And worst of all, I was betrayed as a father. Because sleeping down the hallway that night, unaware of the storm that had just erupted, was my 3-year-old daughter, Emily. And in the months to come, I would lose her too. But that part of the story would come later. After that night, I disappeared. Not physically. I still went to work, still paid the bills, still smiled when people asked how I was doing. But inside, I was gone. A shell. A shadow. The divorce came quickly. Linda didn't fight it. In fact, she filed before I could. Just like that, she took the house, took the car, and worst of all, she took Emily. The court believed her. She painted me as an angry man, said I was unstable, dangerous. She even filed for full custody, claiming I was emotionally unfit to raise our daughter. I tried to fight. God, I tried. But I was broken, and battling demons she'd helped create. My lawyer did his best, but it was never a fair fight. She had Trevor. He had money, connections. I had truth, but truth doesn't mean much in a courtroom if the other side screams louder. And Emily? I saw her once more after the split. A brief, supervised visit. She didn't recognize me. She clung to the social worker's hand, stared at me like I was a stranger. When I tried to reach for her, she flinched. I didn't blame her. She was just a child. And the people who were supposed to protect her poisoned her mind against me. After that, I never saw her again. For a long time, I didn't think I'd survive it. I drank. A lot. Got into fights I had no business being in. Slept in my truck more times than I could count. If it wasn't for my mother, God rest her soul, I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story. She took me in, let me fall apart in her guest room, fed me when I forgot how to eat. For months, she just sat with me in silence, never asked questions, never demanded I move on. She knew I couldn't. Not yet. But slowly something shifted. One morning, I woke up and realized I was still breathing, that I hadn't collapsed under the weight of everything. And if I could survive one more day, maybe I could survive another. So I got up. I found work at a local bar, cleaning tables, unloading beer deliveries, fixing busted toilets. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than rage or grief. I felt useful. I worked my way up, started tending bar, got friendly with the regulars, learned their stories, their sorrows. Everyone had pain. Mine just ran a little deeper than most. And then one day, I bought the place. It took every cent I had, plus a small loan, but I did it. I turned that rundown hole in the wall into something real. Daniel's Taproom. A place with good music, good food, and strong drinks. A place where people could come and forget their problems for a while. But the best part wasn't the money or the reputation. It was the music. I joined a local band, played guitar like I used to in high school. We weren't great, but we had fun. Friday and Saturday nights became sacred. Laughter, rhythm, the thump of bass in your chest. It drowned out the silence that used to echo in my heart. Eventually, I met Rachel. She was different. Warm, steady. She didn't try to fix me. She just sat beside me and held my hand until I stopped shaking. She had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Cara and Carter. I thought I'd never be a father again, but they made me feel like one. They called me Mark at first, then Dad. I didn't correct them. And Rachel? She saw the good in me, even when I couldn't. We married 2 years after we met. Bought a house. Built a life. And for a while, it felt like maybe, just maybe, I had outrun my past. But I hadn't. Because every birthday that passed, I thought of Emily. Every school play or soccer game I watched Carter or Cara play, I wondered what my daughter was doing. Was she happy? Was she safe? Did she even remember me? I tried to find her. Sent letters. Emails. Even hired a private investigator once. But every road led to a dead end. Linda had changed her last name. Moved out of state. It was like they vanished into thin air. So I did the only thing I could. I waited. I waited and hoped that one day, by some miracle, she'd come looking for me. That she'd ask the questions I never got the chance to answer. And every time the door opened at the bar, I looked up, just in case. Because deep down, beneath the life I had rebuilt, there was still a father, praying for his daughter to come home. It was a Thursday afternoon, slow, humid, the kind of day where nothing feels quite real. The lunch crowd had just started trickling into the bar. The air buzzed with the clatter of plates, low conversation, and the hum of a classic rock tune playing softly through the speakers. I was wiping down the counter, half listening to Garrett, my longtime manager, ramble about the beer order when I saw her. She sat alone at a corner booth, tucked beneath the stained glass window where sunlight spilled onto the dark wood. She was young, 18, maybe 19, with messy brown hair that brushed her shoulders and deep, tired eyes that didn't belong to someone so young. She wore a worn white t-shirt and jeans that looked like they'd seen better days. She wasn't drinking or eating, just sitting there, silent, with a small backpack at her side. At first, I didn't think much of it. Kids came through from time to time. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Maybe she was lost. But then she looked up, and I froze. Her eyes, brown, sharp, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't just her face. It was something deeper. A feeling. A flicker of recognition that burned like a flame I'd long thought extinguished. I looked away quickly, embarrassed by how long I'd stared. But I kept watching her from behind the bar, stealing glances whenever I could. There was something about her. Garrett noticed. He leaned in, nudging me with his elbow. "You good, boss? You've been zoning out like a lovesick puppy." I forced a chuckle, trying to shake the unease crawling up my spine. Yeah. Just thought I knew her. That's all. Ex-girlfriend's kid, he teased. Something like that. I muttered. But it wasn't funny. It wasn't even close. As the hours passed, the girl stayed. Never ordered food. Just drank water, picking at the straw like she was trying to keep her hands busy. Every so often, she'd glance my way, then quickly look down. There was a nervous energy about her, like she wanted to speak, but didn't know how. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked out from behind the bar, grabbed a rag just to give my hands something to do, and made my way over. Each step felt heavier than the last. My palms were sweating. My throat was dry. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that it was just a coincidence, a trick of memory, but I couldn't ignore the pull in my chest. When I reached her table, she looked up slowly, eyes wide. Fear flickered across her face like a spark in dry grass. "Hey," I said gently. "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated, then gave a small nod. I slid into the booth across from her, heart pounding so loud I swore she could hear it. Up close, she looked even more familiar. Her nose, her chin, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, it was all too much. "I'm Mark," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's your name?" She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced the rim of her glass. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "Emily." My world stopped. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My brain screamed that it wasn't possible, but my heart already knew the truth. It had known the second she walked through the door. "Emily," I repeated, voice cracking. She looked up again, her eyes locking onto mine. She knew. She knew I knew. My throat tightened, and I felt the sting of tears rising fast. "My God," I whispered. "It's really you." She nodded slowly, her own eyes glassy with tears she clearly didn't want to shed in front of a stranger, even if that stranger was her father. I wanted to reach for her, but I didn't dare. She looked scared, not of me, but of everything, of the weight of the moment, of what it meant. We sat in silence for what felt like forever, just two broken pieces of a puzzle finally finding their way back together. When I finally spoke again, my voice was barely more than breath. "I've waited 13 years for this." She blinked rapidly, a single tear sliding down her cheek. She wiped it away before it could fall completely. "I didn't know if I'd ever see you again," I said. "I didn't even know if you were alive." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked down, ashamed maybe, or overwhelmed. I couldn't tell, but I knew one thing for sure. My daughter had come back, and I would do everything in my power to never lose her again. I didn't know how long we sat there, just staring at each other. Me, still frozen in disbelief. Emily, barely keeping herself together. Every second dragged like an hour, like the air had thickened between us and no one knew how to breathe anymore. I finally found my voice again, shaky but sincere. "You hungry?" I asked. "I haven't eaten either." She hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. No words, just a nod. That was enough for now. I called over Sophie, one of our regular servers. She was quick to pick up on the situation. Sophie always was. With a gentle smile, she took our order. I got my usual buffalo chicken sandwich, and after a pause, Emily asked for a bacon cheeseburger. It was the first full sentence she'd spoken since telling me her name. When Sophie walked away, I tried not to bombard her with questions, even though 1,000 were clawing at my throat. Where had she been? What had Linda told her? Did she know the truth? Instead, I just looked at her, really looked. And I saw it. The signs were there if you knew where to look. Her clothes were clean, but old. Her skin, pale under the eyes. There was a tiredness in her face I recognized too well. I had seen that same expression in the mirror after the divorce. She was struggling. "You don't have to talk yet," I said softly. "But I want you to know. I'm here. You can ask me anything. Say anything. Or nothing at all." Emily bit her lip and looked away. I saw the tears she was holding back. And then, finally, her voice cracked through the silence. "She lied to me. I didn't have to ask who." She blinked hard, fists clenched on the table. "All my life, she told me you were the one who hurt her. That you tried to take me. That you were dangerous." I believed her. Her voice broke at the last part, and she turned away, ashamed. I felt my chest burn, not with anger, but with heartbreak. My little girl had carried that weight for over a decade. A lie planted by the one person she should have been able to trust. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." I reached across the table, slowly, and laid my hand on hers. She flinched, but didn't pull away. "You don't owe me an apology, Emily," I said. "You were a child. You believed the people who raised you. That's not your fault." She looked at me, truly looked at me, and for the first time I saw something shift. A flicker of hope, of connection. "I found the letters," she said, voice low. "The ones you wrote me." She hid them. I only saw them after we got evicted. That word hit me like a punch. Evicted? She nodded. We got kicked out of the apartment. Mom lost her job months ago. I didn't know. She kept pretending everything was fine until it wasn't. My jaw tightened. Linda had always been good at hiding things. But to let it get this far? To let our daughter fall into that? What happened then? I asked. I confronted her. About the letters. About everything. She denied it, of course. Blamed Kevin. Said it was him who sent them back. But I knew she was lying. I could see it in her face. Kevin. Just hearing his name made my blood boil. She said if I left, I was on my own. So I left. Her voice wavered, but she kept going. I found your name online. Knew you owned this bar. Bought a bus ticket with the last paycheck I got from my part-time job. I didn't know if you'd even recognize me. I laughed, a bitter edge to it. Emily, the moment you looked at me, I knew. I didn't want to believe it. But I knew. Sophie returned with our food then, mercifully breaking the tension. Emily stared at her burger like she hadn't eaten in days. She took one bite, then another, then devoured half the thing before pausing. I haven't had a full meal in a while, she admitted, cheeks flushed. I smiled gently. Eat as much as you want. There's plenty more where that came from. As she ate, I leaned back and watched her. Not in disbelief anymore, but in awe. My daughter, my Emily, was sitting across from me. A young woman now. Hurt, but strong. Torn down, but not broken. She looked up suddenly, a piece of bacon still halfway to her mouth. Do you hate her? The question made my heart ache. I don't know, I said truthfully. I've been angry for a long time. But today, I'm just glad you're here. She gave a small, crooked smile. Her mother's smile. But her eyes, they were mine. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. After the last table left, and the bar finally quieted, I sat in my office staring at the old photo I kept tucked away in my drawer, the one of me holding Emily on her second birthday. Her hair was tied in little pigtails. Her eyes were wide, laughing. Mine. I looked younger, lighter. A man who still believed he had the whole world in his hands. And now, 13 years later, she was asleep upstairs in the guest room at my house. I could hardly wrap my head around it. When I brought her home that night, she was quiet the entire drive, clutching her worn backpack, staring out the window like she wasn't sure if this was real or if it was going to disappear at any second. I pulled into the driveway, hit the garage remote, and eased the truck into its usual spot. As the door closed behind us, she turned and whispered, "Is this your house?" I smiled, trying to keep things light. Ours, if you want it to be. Inside, Claire had already turned on the porch lights and left a note on the counter. Gone to grab Chinese. Can't wait to meet her. Welcome home, Emily. Emily read it, then looked at me. She knows. She knows everything, I said gently. And she wants to meet you. Emily looked overwhelmed. I could tell she wasn't used to kindness without strings attached. I remembered that look. I had worn it for months after losing her. I showed her around the house, starting with the kitchen and the living room. She didn't say much, just nodded and whispered polite responses. But when we got to the spare room and I flicked on the light, she stopped in her tracks. The room wasn't anything fancy. Cream walls, a queen bed, soft blue bedding, a big window. But she stared at it like it was the most beautiful place she'd ever seen. I can stay here, she asked. For as long as you want. She stepped inside slowly, eyes wide. I placed her small suitcase by the bed, and she turned to me, her voice shaking. I haven't had my own room in years. Something twisted in my chest. Before I could respond, the garage door opened. I heard Claire's voice float in, cheerful and bright, followed by the sound of plastic takeout bags rustling. Hey, I'm home. Who's hungry? I stepped out to greet her, and when she looked up and saw the expression on my face, somewhere between joy and fear, she slowed. She's here. I nodded. In the spare room. Claire's eyes softened. She handed me the bags, brushed a hand through her hair, and took a steadying breath. Then she walked in like she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. I followed behind as she gently knocked on the door. Emily opened it slowly, and the two locked eyes. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Claire gave her the warmest smile I'd ever seen. Hi, Emily. I'm Claire. I've waited a long time to meet you. Emily just stared, lips trembling. Then, quietly, she said, You're nice. Claire chuckled. So I've been told. Emily smiled a little. Not much, but it was real. We sat down together at the table, and I watched something incredible happen. Claire started talking to Emily like she was already part of the family. She asked her favorite food, favorite movies, what music she liked. Nothing heavy, just easy, comfortable chatter. And slowly, Emily responded. By the time dinner was over, she was laughing. Not the full-belly kind of laugh. Not yet, but a soft giggle that warmed every inch of my soul. Afterward, Claire stood and said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." Emily looked unsure, but followed her into the hallway. I stayed back, giving them space. When they returned 10 minutes later, Emily had tears in her eyes. Claire smiled at me and whispered. She saw the photo. The photo. I knew which one. The one at the top of the stairs, me holding baby Emily, both of us smiling, frozen in a happier time. She asked if the tattoo was real, Claire added. I looked at Emily. It is, I said, tapping my chest. Right over my heart. She looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. Instead, she walked over, leaned against me, and whispered, "Thank you for not forgetting me." I wrapped my arms around her, trying not to lose it. "I could never forget you," I said. "Never." And as I stood there holding the daughter I thought I'd lost forever, I realized something. This wasn't just a second chance. It was redemption. A shot at rebuilding something I never thought I'd have again. A family. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen at the office door, watching Emily as she quietly laughed at something Claire said. That laugh, it was soft, hesitant, but it was real. For the first time since she walked into my bar, she looked like she could breathe. After dinner, Claire took Emily upstairs to help her unpack, and I retreated to my office, needing a few minutes to process. My emotions were all over the place. Gratitude, heartbreak, hope, fear. I thought I was alone with my thoughts, but just a few minutes later, I heard a soft knock on the door. Emily stepped in, holding a small stack of opened envelopes in her hands. "I found these," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "In the trash pile, outside our old apartment. I think they're from you." I stood up quickly, my heart pounding as I took them from her. My handwriting, familiar, desperate, leapt off the pages. These were the letters I'd written her, one after another, over a year, pouring my heart into every single word, telling her I loved her, that I missed her, that I'd never stop being her dad. "I sent these a long time ago," I said quietly. "One every month. I hoped your mom would read them to you." Emily looked down, clutching her arms. She didn't. She never said anything. I didn't even know they existed. "They were all returned," I added, showing her the red-inked stamps, "Return to sender." I kept sending them anyway. For a while, until I couldn't take the rejection anymore. Her lip trembled, her eyes filled with something between rage and sorrow. "She lied to me," she whispered. "All those years, I thought you didn't care, that you left me. And all this time, she was hiding this." Tears streamed down her face. Why would she do that? Why would she rob me of knowing the truth? I didn't have an answer. I'd asked myself that same question for over a decade. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said softly. "But what matters now is that you know the truth. I never stopped thinking about you. Never stopped loving you." Emily sat down slowly, the letters still in her lap. "I read them. Every word," she said. "You called me your light, your reason for living. You talked about my laugh, about the teddy bear you gave me, about the songs you used to sing to me." I smiled sadly. "You still remember?" "Bits and pieces. But when I read those letters, everything started coming back. It's like I could feel you again. Like I knew who you really were." She looked up at me, eyes raw with emotion. "I had to find you." I swallowed hard, trying to hold myself together. "And you did." She nodded. "I used the last of my paycheck for a bus ticket. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. That was incredibly brave." She shook her head. "No, it wasn't bravery. It was desperation. I didn't know where else to go." My chest ached. She wasn't here just to reconnect. She was lost. She'd been abandoned by the people who should have protected her. Now, she was reaching for someone she'd been taught to fear. "You're not alone anymore," I said firmly. "I promise." Then I opened the drawer behind my desk and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were copies of court documents, the trust fund paperwork I'd set up for her, and the final batch of unsent letters I'd kept in case I ever saw her again. "I never stopped hoping," I said, "even when the world made me feel like a fool for holding on." Emily took the folder and stared at the contents in disbelief. "You kept all this for me?" "For you," I said. "Always." She broke down again. But this time, Her sobs weren't just grief. They were release. I wrapped my arms around her and held her close. "I'm here," I whispered into her hair. "And this time, no one is taking you away from me." That night, after dinner, I walked Emily up to her new room. She was quiet, but didn't seem nervous anymore, just thoughtful, as if 1,000 questions were swimming through her mind. I paused at her door, still holding the handle. "You okay?" I asked gently. She nodded. "Just tired. It's been a lot." "I know," I said, stepping back. "Get some rest. If you need anything, I'm just down the hall." She gave me a faint smile and slipped inside. I stood there for a moment, my hand still resting on the doorknob, before I finally turned away and went to my office. I needed a moment to think, to breathe. So much had happened in just 24 hours. For 13 years, I had imagined how this day would look, how it might feel to see her again. But nothing prepared me for the intensity of it. I sat at my desk and pulled open the bottom drawer, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside were the letters I had written to her. Some returned, unopened. Others I never sent. I ran my fingers over the worn edges of the envelopes, my heart heavy. She had been so close all these years, and yet unreachable. I didn't even hear the knock on the door. "Dad?" came Emily's voice, soft and uncertain. I turned, quickly wiping at my eyes. "Yeah, come in." She entered slowly, holding a small bundle of papers in her hands. I recognized the envelopes immediately, my letters. "I found these," she said. "They were hidden at the bottom of one of Mom's storage boxes. I didn't even know they existed." I stood up, stunned. Those are the ones I sent after the divorce." "I know," she whispered. "She told me you never wrote. That you didn't want me." A bitter laugh escaped me. "That's what she told the court too." "I read them all," Emily said, her voice cracking. "Every single one." She moved toward me and placed the bundle on my desk next to the others. For a moment, she just stood there, looking at them, as if they were the pieces of a puzzle she'd spent her whole life trying to solve. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I shook my head, stepping toward her. "No, don't ever apologize for what she did." "I believed her," Emily said. "I believed everything she told me. About you. About the fight. About how you were dangerous." "She painted me as a monster," I said, my voice low. "Told the judge I kidnapped you. That I hurt her, and you. I testified against you," she said suddenly. "I was 4, and I don't remember it. But I found a court transcript in one of the boxes when we were being evicted. I said you scared me. That I didn't want to see you again." My heart shattered all over again. "You were a child," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "She made sure you were terrified of me. I read the report from the child psychologist. You'd been coached, Emily. Trained to hate me." She sat down on the edge of the couch, her shoulders slumped. "I still remember little things. I remember a red teddy bear. I remember music playing in the kitchen. Your laugh." I smiled softly. "You loved when I played guitar. You used to dance around the living room in your socks." She looked up at me then, eyes wide. I wasn't sure that was real. I thought maybe I made it up. "No," I said, sitting beside her. "It was real. All of it." Silence hung between us for a moment before she spoke again. "She told me you hit her. That you broke Kevin's ribs. That you were arrested." I nodded slowly. "That part is true. I came home one night and found them together, in our bed. I lost it. I hit him. I wish I could say I regret it, but I don't." Emily didn't flinch. She just stared at the floor. "He never loved me. He always reminded me I wasn't really his." I clenched my fists. "Did he ever hurt you?" "No," she said quickly, then hesitated. "Not physically, but he never hugged me. Never called me his daughter. He just existed. And Mom, she was always angry. Always blaming someone." I took a deep breath. "And now you're here." She looked at me, her expression vulnerable. "Do you think I can still have a place here? With you? With your family?" I reached out and took her hand in mine. "You don't have a place here, Emily. You have a home. This is your home. Always was. Always will be." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I pulled her into a hug, and she didn't pull away this time. She sank into me like she belonged there, like she remembered what it felt like to be loved by a father. "I'm sorry it took so long," she whispered. "Me too," I said, holding her tighter. "But we have time now. We're not losing another day." The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I didn't sleep much. My mind kept running over everything Emily and I had talked about the night before. It felt like a dream, the kind you're scared to wake from because reality can never compare. Except this was real. My daughter, after 13 long years, was asleep just down the hall. I brewed some coffee and sat at the kitchen table, letting the steam rise against my face. The house was quiet, except for the soft creaks of wood settling and the occasional birdsong outside. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a home. Claire came downstairs about 20 minutes later, still in her robe, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She looked at me, then tilted her head. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, but my throat tightened. I stood up and walked to her, wrapping my arms around her shoulders. "Thank you," I whispered. She hugged me back without question. For what? For loving me. For helping me survive long enough to see this day. She pulled back and looked up at me with those warm, steady eyes. "She's your daughter, Mark. She was always going to find her way home." I wanted to believe that. Maybe now I could. Later that morning, we all gathered for breakfast. Claire, Cara, Carter, and Emily. There was an awkwardness at first. Emily still wasn't used to the energy in the house, the teasing between the kids, the way Claire and I held hands at the table. But slowly, she began to relax, and even laugh at one of Carter's terrible jokes. Then came the knock on the door. I felt it before I even opened it. Some strange instinct, something tight in my chest. When I pulled the door open, I froze. It was her. Cynthia, my ex-wife. The woman who ripped my daughter from my life. She looked tired, worn. Her once perfect blonde hair was now tied in a messy bun. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something hollow behind them. "Mark," she said, standing stiff on the front step. I didn't move. "How did you know she was here?" "She called me last night," Cynthia replied, her voice brittle. "I guess I should be thankful she's alive." I gritted my teeth. "You're not setting foot in my house." "I'm not here to fight," she said quickly, holding her hands up. I need to talk to her." Behind me, I heard footsteps. "Emily." "Mom," she said quietly. I turned around. Emily stood just a few feet away, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her face was unreadable. "Emily, please," Cynthia started, stepping forward. But Emily held her ground. "You lied to me. For years. You made me hate him." "I didn't want to lose you," Cynthia whispered. "You never had me," Emily replied, her voice rising. "You took me. You turned me against my father. You destroyed our family. I did what I thought was best." "No, you did what was best for you." Cynthia looked shaken, like she hadn't expected Emily to be so strong. She turned her eyes to me. "I didn't come here to fight," she repeated, weaker now. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too stunned. Emily, however, took a deep breath. "You said what you came to say? Now leave." Cynthia hesitated. "You're really going to stay here?" "I already live here," Emily said firmly. "This is my family now." Cynthia's lips trembled. She looked at me one last time, then slowly turned and walked back to her car. We stood there in silence until the engine faded down the street. Emily let out a shaky breath. I turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she said. "I needed to." Then she looked up at me. "Do you still have the red teddy bear?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah, it's in the top of my closet." "What?" I think I remember holding it the night you left. I don't know why, but it stuck with me." I smiled, that lump returning to my throat. "We'll get it down later." She nodded, then slipped her hand into mine. In that moment, all the anger, the pain, the lost years, they were still there, but they didn't own us anymore. We had taken something broken and started to put it back together. I looked at my daughter, my strong, brave girl, and I knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was finally home. Looking back now, I realize how much pain we carry through the years, some we caused, some we didn't. For a long time, I let anger define me. I let heartbreak turn me cold. But holding my daughter again, hearing her call this place home, I finally understood something. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but love does. If there's one thing I've learned, especially at this stage in life, it's that forgiveness matters. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. We all make mistakes. We all fall short. But it's never too late to rebuild, to reach out, to love again. So, to anyone listening, especially those who've lost something or someone, don't give up. Don't let the past steal your future. Keep your heart open. Keep showing up, even when it hurts. Family isn't just about blood. It's about presence. It's about choosing each other again and again, even after everything falls apart. I may have missed 13 years with Emily, but I'm not missing another day. And if she can find her way back to me, maybe someone you love can too. All it takes is a little faith and a door left open.